All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of A Value Conversation, Gen X Spoken Word. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what's going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right, so tonight's topic is going to be bait and switch tactics blacks keep falling for. All right, so there's quite an amount of those that have happened over the course of the last 100 some odd years, but I figured I'd pick a few just so we could have the conversation about it and then take a look and see if you see it as bait and switch as well. Now, the good thing here tonight is that I've got a couple of partners who've known me since I was in the K through 12 range. I'm talking about going all the way back to my junior and senior year of high school. So they're going to be joining me tonight to go ahead and have a discussion about what's on the plate here. So let me go ahead and bring up Malcolm and Tyron. We already clowning around in the back, but nonetheless, hey, here we are right now. Fellas, again, thanks for joining. I know we've been chit-chatting in the back, but now we're live on stage. And like I said, it's pretty much a closed party. Most of my folks who come over are currently over in another show. But as I was telling Malcolm, hey, I still got to get my watch hours in. So it doesn't matter who's here now or comes in later because I've always got the replay gang. And normally my leader of that is Dawn. She's in France, but it's almost the middle of the night right now. So she's probably not going to be here, but she may or may not poke her head in. So if she does, that's cool. But before we get started, as always, let me go ahead and make sure we put a little mood music in the background. Setting the mood. All right, let me go ahead and lay this in the background. All right, so in the back, so Malcolm, if you could, man, go ahead and take a couple of minutes. I'll say about 3 for right now, but it's just the 3 of us, so we may be able to be liberal about the time here. But if you could, go ahead and do an introduction and give us a background about what you have done. But when you finish, let us know either in your current or in your previous career field what here in the current administration is causing an issue that you can see, even though you're retired right now. But go ahead, Malcolm. Floor is yours.
Yeah, Malcolm Rogers. I am 58 years old. I spent 25 years and 4 days in the Air Force. I was security forces and military police my whole career. I retired in 2011. Upon retiring, I went into government contracting. Back in my career field, doing security work, working with the Security Forces Center. Working with different organizations, AETC, working with the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Again, back in my security field, the effect of what I can see what's going on now. Obviously, looks like he's cutting the military. A lot of these contracts are gonna be dwindling down and cut off. I know I just heard something to the effect of $40 million worth of contracts cut just in San Antonio here alone. Particularly the company I used to work for, which I worked for that company for 7 years. Started off as an analyst and went all the way up to the operations manager, the number 3 person in the company. Particularly, I have not heard that they lost any positions, but they are very worried due to the influx of the new government. So particularly, again, I haven't heard any loss of. I've heard a lot of folks that lost their jobs on the federal side of the house, again, which could in turn affect contracts.
Remember back in the day where everyone used to talk about it took an act of God or whatever to fire a federal worker?
Absolutely.
Man, it's absolute nonsense. So also, Malcolm, now that I think about it, I also read here recently that Elon Musk is building a city out. Is it how far is Brownsville, Texas, away from you?
Brownsville is probably like 3 hours down south.
So I guess he's going to call it Starbase. I mean, literally, they say right about now, the majority of the people who are out there putting the town together are SpaceX employees.
Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so you just finished bilking the government here for about a couple billion or so. And I'm not trying to spread any type of conspiracy theory, making unknown or unsubstantiated emphasis. I'm just going to ask the question: how are you going to sit here and build a city with influx of cash, but everybody else is losing their jobs and having funding pulled? Like, what is this all about? How are you even getting away with this, dude? But that'll probably be a topic for another show. But
yeah, definitely.
Thank you for the intro, Malcolm. Yo, Tyron, down to you, man. Floor is yours.
How you doing there, little brother? Hey, Ty. Most of you will know me as Ty Grant. I was in the Air Force for 23 years and went back to radiology school. Right now, what I've been doing is working for the VA hospital. I do radiology, interventional surgery, and also CAT scans, imaging, and for the last 17 years. So I'm about to retire for the second time, so that I got a little free time that I can do stuff like you, kid, get these podcasts together. But how has this federal government, or are you talking about the administration? We'll talk about Doge. Like I said, I worked for 17 years, about to retire again, and I'm still having to do those right to OPM and tell them exactly what I'm doing, what I have done for the past week, and also almost like justifying my job. That's why I'm pulling chalks. I'm out of here because I don't have to do it. But guess what? There are almost 30,000 veterans and non-vets that have federal employees that have summarily been dismissed with little to no warning whatsoever. Every day I got to deal with this, man. I'm listening to people sitting back and taking that fool's goal, which is you can voluntarily resign, put in your resignation, and they tell you, oh yeah, you'll get paid all the way up to September. I'm gonna let you guys know right now, I know quite a few people that accepted that. And guess what? Not one of them have received the paycheck. But they said, hey, wow. But what people don't know is there's a fine print at the end where they've signed their name. And it says, you will get compensated if the funding is available.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yes, yes.
Where is that in
what I'm talking about? See there, that may be something like you said, Kev. That's going to be something for another podcast, brother.
Right.
And it goes right along the lines of the name for this one, which is baiting and switching.
Yep. Baiting, switching. Yes, sir.
That would be a perfect thing to add here, but I guess if you don't have it right now, I can always do a bait and switch part 2 and pick up what they don't do here, because the way that they make it sound is that once you say, okay, I'm out of here, then that means that you're going to be able to get your money. I'm thinking it's going to be within a month or so.
No. No, I know a lot of, and we're not even talking about, I just touched on the ones that have lost their jobs. I'm talking about entire departments that have lost their jobs, fired for no reason whatsoever other than Doge can sit back and use that as so-called justification. Like they were supposed to save $2 trillion. It went down to 500 billion. Now it went down to about something like, I think they said he saved $120 billion, which seems like a lot of money, but guess what? It is just a drop of water in the bucket when we're looking at the budget that we have for this country. But it's all about save. They can use that as justification for what we got going on, which is the biggest. It will be the biggest transfer of wealth from the bottom 98 or 98% up to the top 2%. But don't get me started. That's a little bit about me, brother.
Well, still, nonetheless, that's good info to have regardless, because of the fact that I'm tripping over the fact that you just said the people who took, now, correct me if I'm wrong, remember back in 93 where we had the BSI SSB? That was my third year in the military. That's what this almost sounds like. Whereas, okay, for you senior NCOs who are at 15 years and you want to retire early, you don't have to do 20. We'll do a 15-year retirement and we'll let you guys go right now. That's what this almost sounds like, except that those guys got to take their money.
Yeah, those people got their money though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The difference is that they left, but they got their money.
Yeah, that was called a RIP.
Yeah, you got a lower percentage of your retirement, which I have a friend that actually took it. So instead of getting 50% of his retirement, and he didn't take he took there was another program to where they'd give you a lump sum, and again they dropped the percentage of your retirement at the end when you retire. And I told him, I said, don't do that, don't take that. And so now he gets like 30% of his retirement.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, for $30,000 back in the day, which was extremely taxed. So when it was all over and done, he probably got $20,000.
Yeah,
he could.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, he could have made that up in his retirement in probably a year or two.
I remember when I was a kid. By the way, folks, let me just put this out here. I've known Malcolm since I was 16 years old, and I've known Grant since I was about 17. So think about this now. I'll be 55 years old next month.
Yes, sir.
That's crazy.
How long I've known these two dudes.
Yeah. Now, Grant, you said you 62?
I turned 62 on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And I'm the old one.
I'll be 59. I'm pushing 60. I'll be 59 August 28th. So
I just want you folks to realize that being that we're all prior military. Matter of fact, I retired back in 2011. But just a quick segment here, since we've got plenty of time for the most part, at least as much time as we can for you guys, because you're about an hour behind me, Malcolm, and Grant, you were 2 hours behind. But still, I won't eat up much of that. So I got to RAF Bentwaters in 1986 with my folks. My father was a security police commander. He was a deputy commander back then. So I think he was a captain when you got there. This is back in those days where when you made captain, it was 7 years that you had to sit in that spot before you could get promoted, before things changed. But nonetheless, I met Malcolm and Grant at the base gym playing basketball. That's why back when everybody had knees and stuff like that. I'll go ahead and put that in there. So, and laugh and I say, Grant used to be able to dunk a basketball.
Oh, Grant could ball. Grant could ball.
Malcolm and I were, we were part-timers. You come in there shooting.
Grant played on a base basketball team, and I played on a base football team. Definitely not. I was definitely not a basketball player.
Yeah. So I played basketball in high school for 1 year for the most part. So I made my first and last year to play basketball, my senior year, made varsity, but we got ran out the spot just about every damn game we played, though. But these guys, again, I've been looking at them for this amount of time, and imagine now, there was spots in the area. But before that, we had the base club. That's where everyone got together on a Friday or Saturday night. And then also there are the all-nighters as well, to where the club was staying on that extra hour. And if you weren't doing anything on the base, then you had off base hoofers.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
One of the popular spots, of course, when you guys were starting to leave, and that's right, Malcolm, you were still there when Hollywood's opened up, right?
I was.
Yeah, so you had Hollywood's, what was that? Dolce Vita, Cindy's or Cinderella's. These were the spots.
Oh, man.
The thing is that they would, if I was on base where the cops were, which is what Malcolm was in the cops dorms, they would let me hang around up until a certain point where they say, okay, Kev, you got to go. I'm like, why? Because we about to do some stuff. We don't need to have your father over here if you get in trouble with them. You know, they would literally kick me out of the party, right? So I'm already 16 or 17, but the difference is when you were 16 years old over in the UK, you could go to a pub, you could drink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would come in and I would tell my parents about that. Yeah, Dad, if you're looking, yeah, it was them. It was those two right here. I'm just like, my father's probably looking at it right now. It was him, but anyway.
But your pops knew. Hey, your pops knew we were gonna take care of you, young pup. You always was the young pup.
That was the upside. So he knew that if I was out and around any of these cops, he'd trust. Well, I'm sure they pretty much know when you need to go. Yes, they did. So when Charlie and Stack and those guys got caught driving around on the flight line on those things that move the generators and whatnot,
those jammers. Yeah. that was the one time that I decided not to do what they were doing. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
And Grant, you were maintenance, right?
Yes. Aircraft maintenance. Thank you, sweetheart. Yeah.
So Grant didn't get in that type of trouble with us. Well, matter of fact, didn't you have a spot off base?
Come on, brother. You know my spot. Y'all used to blow my spot up. I
never got to go. Remember, I didn't get to go.
If anybody's listening that was the old crew from Bentwaters, they all remember 1414 Kirby Lane. 1414.
Hey, yes. Grant, didn't we call that place the mayonnaise factory?
Hey, and it was because of you guys. I'm one of the only ones that got kicked out of the town of Ipswich, and they said that we need that airman back on base. They kicked me from downtown and say you're having too many parties. The base commander or my neighbors told the base commander, I read the letter. They said there are so many scantily clad women going in and out of that house all times of the night and morning that we don't know who lives there and who don't. Yeah.
My first question is, why wasn't I there with scantily clad women?
You was just a little too young back then. You could party with us on base. You could party with us on base, but not downtown Ipswich.
No, Kevin.
I could hang out at that spot, but I couldn't come to the party.
Yeah, we did have some morals.
All right.
Okay.
So obviously, it gives me an idea for a follow-up show down the road. So here's what we're going to do before we go ahead and jump into the main topics here. I'm going to see if I can get Malcolm, Ty, and maybe a few more folks from the Bentwaters crew from back then, and we may just sit around here and we'll just do a flashback, because one of the things I do want to have a discussion about is how you all are doing today versus whenever we last saw each other. But keep that in the back of your mind as I go ahead and key up the first topic here. So again, as I said, the topics that we're going to look at tonight are going to exist around, let me go ahead and stop the music here for a second. It's going to be around bait and switch. All right, so that's the move right about now, bait and switch. So with that being said, share screen, enter. All right, got it. So we'll get on to the first one here. All right, so this was the first thing that caught my mind and got me thinking about, okay, let's go ahead and do something about a bait and switch, which we've all been privy to. We've seen this happen here. Raw deal. Analyst shames Trump for luring black voters with bait and switch. President Donald Trump has prioritized the wrong values, according to Washington Post columnist Theodore R. Johnson, and the minority groups he courted during the presidential campaign are paying for it. The promises, Johnson believes, are not being kept from the Platinum Plan, which we'll take a look at here in a moment, which Trump allegedly touted as his method of economically empowering blacks. In exchange for support at the ballot box, Trump offered measures such as equitable lending programs for Black communities, the creation of 500,000 new Black-owned businesses, and the establishment, get this, of diversity training and accreditation standards for the police departments. I'll land my plane right there. Grant, you first. What do you got to say to that?
It was all about fool's gold. It was fool's gold. With the platinum plan is what he touted as his. That's what he used to lure people in and say, "Oh yeah." I heard so many people say, "Yeah, see that he ain't no racist. He's about us. He's about us." Just because he hung out with he hung out and gave Jay-Z and some other rappers some dap. But look at that platinum plan. Equitability of lending programs. He used that as bait so that certain people, so that we were the ones, some of us were foolish enough to buy into that foolishness. Diversity training and accreditation standards for police departments. Hey, how's that working out for you? If you look at it in actuality, all of that stuff was fool's gold. And that was really during his first presidency, when he was first running and he got into office. He didn't. He bait and switched in, and he still tried to tout the same things, even though we could hear in the background, what's this 2025? What's this project 2025? Which DEI, it was nothing but a complete bait and switch, because with what the 2025 that we heard about that was coming down the pipe, all of that stuff there, diversity training of the police department, equity and lending programs, also small Black businesses getting a seat to the table, getting access to some of those federal programs. All that stuff there is an oxymoron to 2025. You might as well say jumbo shrimp, because 2025 and our reality that we have today as a country, not just African Americans, but as a country, none of that stuff. It's the opposite of that. What was it called? Platinum plan. So, next. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I can go on and on and on. I'll give someone else the mic.
Malcolm, your thoughts.
Well, like you said, I'm gonna use your words. I'm gonna use Grant words. It's a bait and switch. It was fool's gold. For a Black person to believe anything that comes out of Trump's mouth is idiotic. You talking about somebody who's aligned themselves with white supremacist groups, somebody who's gone after Black folks before, gone after Black people. Starting back with the New York Five. If you can believe, the man who started the birther movement, if you can believe anything that this man says that he's going to help Black people, then I got some oceanfront property I need to sell you in Arizona. This guy is an outright liar. He will say anything to get anybody's vote, but mainly to get the white vote. Again, these black folks and mostly Black men that vote for him, he even took the stance of saying Kamala is not a Black woman, and angry Black men in this United States that are angry with Black women. yeah, a lot of them said, no, she's not black. Hey, did y'all hear yourself? Y'all know that lady is an AKA, right? Y'all understand that it's like the number one black sorority in the whole United States, right?
Alpha
I don't
Kappa
think she
Alpha
would have.
for our non-black viewers.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't think that lady would have joined that organization if she wasn't a black. Wouldn't doesn't consider herself a black person. But again, fool's gold. If you even read this stuff, it's a bunch of garbage. It's it's not even close. You talking about the through some immigration policies that protect American jobs. Black folks don't want immigrant jobs. Black folks are not going to pick no strawberries and onions and all that. It again, fool's gold, idiotic. It don't make no sense if you really read it. Creating 500,000 new black-owned businesses, not going to happen. What's the first thing that he does when he comes in office? Sign documents to get rid of DEI programs, get rid of civil rights programs, get rid of high-ranking black and female
Officers.
generals, officers in the military. So again, if you bought into this stuff, then you just an idiot. It doesn't make sense.
But those are black jobs.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Malcolm,
taking away.
I'm
They're taking
sorry, I
away
had to
black
get
jobs.
that in there.
No, I don't know. I
They're
don't
taking
know.
black jobs.
That's right. They're taking black jobs. I want to know what black persons you got that are picking strawberries, tomatoes, onions. I would just like to know.
Well, not many or not at all. But here's the thing I'll throw in here about that. Since you guys again we're all back from, we'll say, Gen X. Oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
myself. And then Grant, you are what the very, very last, the baby boomers.
The
Yes.
last year, but I'm still a baby
Last
boomer.
year. That's
Yep.
right. That's right. And we
So
Gen
you
Xers.
think
Yep.
nobody seems to realize the folks that I normally deal with when I used to go on the panels a lot. They were already, majority of them were 15 years or more younger than me. A lot of them got their introduction to Donald Trump through what? The Apprentice.
That's
lot
right.
of them had not grown up in the era that we did with Donald Trump, to where you could remember when he had the casinos. You had Trump casinos. That went bust. You had Trump steaks. That went bust. You had
the university that went bust.
Trump University. That went bust. Trump vodka. That went bust. And then, of course, do you guys remember the USFL?
Yes, sir.
Man,
Hey.
remember how awesome that used to be for like 2 or 3 years where the
Yeah,
NFL
2 years.
had
That's right.
2 months off, and then you had football again through spring and early summer with the USFL.
Yeah. I believe he had the Generals. The Generals was his
He
team.
had the New Jersey.
New Jersey Generals.
Yep, he
And
owned
I just read a story, guys, that the USFL was probably going to get bought out by the NFL and continue to be a league. But when they started negotiating with the USFL, because Trump was one of the head owners and dealing with him, and the NFL was like, "We out of here. We're done. We don't want to fool with this idiot. He's an idiot."
Trump is the one who blew up the USFL. He actually appointed himself to be the spokesman because, again, remember, he was active in a lot of deals in real estate in New York at the time. So he figured, let me be the one to go talk to everybody. And like you said, Malcolm, he pissed them off with him walking in with demands. But who remembers when he tried to sue the NFL? That was the last straw right there.
I remember.
These guys own
Kevin.
2 days of the week. They own Sunday, all Sunday, and they own Monday night. Like, who are you to walk in and try to bully them? Because Trump always wanted to be an NFL owner.
So check this out. I'm not sure if you know this. He won that lawsuit, but you know what you know what they awarded him?
Was it $1 or was it 1 cent?
$1. $1.
It said
$1.
Go slap yourself silly.
You won the lawsuit, they awarded him $1. And basically because of who he was. Because he was so obnoxious and so foul, and the judge was like, you know what? Okay, I got something. I got something for Donald J. Trump.
You win.
Well, the reason that he went and he bought, he invested so much into the USFL was because at first he went to the NFL and tried to buy a franchise, and they said,
Nope.
thank you, no
But
thank
no, thank you.
this boys club here, we don't want your time. They didn't want to have nothing to do with it. So he's always had that chip on his shoulder because they were like, you got money, but you can't get into this, pardon the expression, fraternity. So
Right.
he's always had a chip. He's always had it out for the NFL, because they wouldn't let him in their frat.
Pete Rozelle was one of the main folks I remember from all the articles talking about. Yeah, he wasn't going to be courted, wined, dined. Said, no, Trump, you are not invited here. And primarily, it was his dad's money again that he was always bragging and spending about. But it was his, like Malcolm said, his obnoxious attitude and just the way he conducted himself. But again, that goes well into when you look at all this platinum plan nonsense. If you don't know Donald Trump, you would think, oh, the platinum plan is great. Look, he's a successful business. No, he is not a successful businessman.
Yeah.
He's
a failed businessman.
He's a failed businessman who has been able to recover well because of the wealth generated by his father. Now, and then when you look at just another side note, him and his father were in trouble for black tendency or refusing blacks to live in their apartment. So his bait and switch has been going on for at least, 30, 40 years? At a minimum, something like that?
At least.
So look at this. Look at this right here. So this is the one that made me laugh the worst right here. Creating 500,000 new black-owned businesses, right?
Yes, sir.
What did he just do? He just shuttered two weeks ago. I just did a show on this. They just shuttered the minority minority business development agency. They just shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
There goes all those 500,000 new black-owned businesses. But I got your votes, though.
Mm-hmm.
You got your votes, and then shut it down. And what pissed me off the most, Tim Scott, the Republican guy from South Carolina. Oh, we love you, Donald Trump. Well, Mr. Trump, we love you so much, and didn't get a job in this association. He sat there while they were signing, didn't say a word, didn't open his mouth, didn't do anything. And I'm thinking, okay, real good, Stephen Django, but real nice.
Snow.
He went through South Carolina talking about, oh, what we're going to do. President Trump is going to help us bring business here, and we're going to thrive. I think he has a small insurance agency. But when he shut the MBDA down, he said nothing. Not him in South Carolina, nor Byron Daniels in Florida. All right. Increase access to capital in black communities by almost $500 billion. Okay, so no, we know that's not happening because he's spending too much time disenfranchising folks to either vote or be active in their communities where there's no money coming in. Commit to working on a Second Step Act. I mean, all this stuff pushed off to the wayside. 3 million new jobs for the black community, but yet the black community was looking and banking on the Minority Business Development Agency. That is what? No longer here.
That's right. That's right.
Here we go. Access to better education and job training opportunities. What was that he said about developing DEI standards for police departments and such? The DEI in itself, boom, gone.
Yep, DEI gone.
Onshoring manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities for black-owned businesses. Gone. Here, let me jump to the main one here. Immigration policy that protects American jobs. But yet all you have to do is be out on the DoorDash or something like that, delivering food, and accidentally take the wrong turn on the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Canada. As soon as you try and come back, he deports you.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, I got these people here in Texas. Look, my wife's Hispanic, and I know a lot of let's just say they don't have their papers, and they will not leave San Antonio proper because they know if they do, and they try to come back and they get stopped at one of these checkpoints, then they're out of here. And these people have never been to Mexico in their whole life.
Whoa. So obviously we can pretty much say here that we know that remember the cut 911 is a joke. We know
Yeah.
the platinum plan is a joke.
Oh my God.
Yes.
As demonstrated through his actions to initiate investments into opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reforms, even though he's getting rid of the Department of Education. President Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for the Black community.
Oh man.
I'm done with it. All right. But again, bait and switch, yes or no?
Yes, indeed. 100, 1,000.
So
you know
I'm
what?
going to take a topic.
You know what that man did. I was, Kevin. You sat back and you went down through each line item almost, and it's laughable. It's laughable what someone did, and it wasn't him. It was one of his PR guys, and say, "Hey, listen, we don't know what they really want." Because they were never important enough for us to really pay attention to them. All we did was placate them. All we got to do is just like, and hopefully this don't offend. Well, I don't even care if it does offend some people, as long as it educates some people. It's very similar to what the Democratic Party has always done to the African American community. What the Democratic Party has always done to the African American community. We all go to church. I go to God's House Church here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is I think is the biggest African American church. And what ends up happening is that the Democratic Party or whoever is running, we'll say the mayor or the governor, they'll if we say, okay, their term or the length of their term is 4 years, what'll happen is 2 months before election, they get on our docket, or they get they'll sit back and talk to the pastor and say, "Hey, I need to come and talk to your congregation. And if you allow me to do that, I promise we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. We're gonna pour into your neighborhoods. We're gonna invest in your community, and we're gonna do all this." And what they'll do is they come before the congregation and they say, "Hey, listen, look at me, and this and that, and you vote for me. You vote for me. This is what I'm going to do." Okay. A lot of times we vote for him. That's one of the reasons we vote for him. The other, and I'm trying to stay focused here, but then I gotta mention this too. There's so many of us say, my daddy was a Democrat. My granddaddy was a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm gonna vote. And so they know they got our vote. But guess what? What happens is that they leave. I told you that's 2 months before. That's 2 months. They get elected. Guess when the next time you see them? If it's a 4-year term, you'll see them in 3 years and 10 months. They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They always promise and they don't do anything. But they know, hey, at least I went and I lied to them. The Republican Party sat back and said, we know they ain't gonna vote for us. So they don't even come to our churches, or they don't even come in our neighborhoods and fill us up to make us feel good. So the point that I'm trying to make is the only thing that Trump has ever done Yes, he sits back, and they couldn't remember all that. So they sat back and they wrote that, what do you call that? That thing there that we were talking about.
The platinum plan.
The platinum plan.
Mhm.
Somebody sat back and said, let's look at the NCAA and NAACP. Let's look at all of their complaints that they had, what they said that they wanted to accomplish. And we're gonna write it, and we're gonna say we gonna that's what's all that he never had any intentions of doing that. And you guys, we ain't even got enough time in the day. Y'all start mentioning Tim Scott. I call him Gums. Y'all start talking about Tim Scott and oh my Lord, don't even talk about Byron Donaldson. Oh, Donalds or whatever his name is. Yes. We sick, boss? Yeah, we sick. So,
Well,
man.
Let me.
I can't even. Don't get me started.
So, what I've heard from, I guess, in your area, where you say the Democrats come in and visit church, but you forget the Republicans do also, because at the same time you had Donald Trump, you had Byron Daniels. They sent the dark ones. You even had Tim Scott going to black barbershops. You had Donald Trump going to black businesses and also the churches. So no one was safe on that. Everybody did that. The issue that I have when it comes from that is that we need to make sure that when you go to these videos and you go on YouTube, you can see them. And I guess there was another representative from the Republican camp who went to a black barbershop. It wasn't Trump this one particular time, but you had, it was Trump who went to see the Republican.
It was Byron Donaldson that went. It was Byron Donaldson that went to the cigar or the.
Yeah, he went to one of them. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Kev, if I could just make a point about this platinum plan. This platinum plan is no more than 40 acres and a mule. Have you ever heard of any black family over the years, over the generations, that they got their 40 acres and a mule? And the answer is no. That's what this is. This is the modern day 40 acres and a mule. This will never happen. And it's not even a dream. Obviously we know he didn't even attempt to do any of this stuff. So again, 40 acres and a mule, bait and switch. If you fell for that, then you fell for the real Okey-Doke.
Well, I was going to save this for one of the last parts, but since we're talking about the bait and switch parts to the point where you just brought up 40 acres and the mule, let's do this. So I don't know if you guys were aware of this.
Chacaroni. Chacaroni pizza.
She was on the tip of
yeah.
here.
Oh, I got it, brother. I got it. Hey, look, Kev and Ty. I'm gonna admit this trash right here was a security forces member, Air Force. It's a piece of crap right here. It's an absolute piece of shit right here. And she was one of the first ones that got her brains blowed out at the January 6th riot, and there should have been a whole bunch more. That same thing happened to them.
Yep, he was in there protecting members of Congress.
And they're gonna give her family probably $30 million.
All right, so check this. The Trump administration has agreed to settle a lawsuit brought by the family of Ashley Babbitt, a Trump supporter who was killed when she tried to storm the House Speaker's lobby during the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, according to media reports. Babbitt's family filed the lawsuit in early 2024, seeking $30 million for her death. Financial details of the settlement weren't revealed at a Friday hearing in D.C. federal court, according to CBS and Washington News reports. U.S. Capitol Police Lieutenant Michael Byrd shot and killed 35-year-old Babbitt as members of Congress were still in the lobby after Trump supporters violently stormed the Capitol to try to stop congressional certification of Joe Biden's 2020 victory. Babbitt's mother, Mickey Whithoff, has emerged as a stalwart advocate for the Jan 6 rioters who faced criminal charges in the months and years following the attack. She was charged with 2 traffic violations in early 2023, including failing to obey Capitol Police orders during a protest on the 2-year anniversary of the attack. The settlement comes after Trump granted clemency to about 1,500 defendants.
1,500
charges for their alleged instances, convicted roles in the attack. Now, here's what irked me the most, where Donald Trump would always talk about, we're letting criminals and rapists in the country, the Mexicans, and we're getting everyone for the insane asylums. We're getting all their worst people that are pouring into the country. It's like, dude, you just let 1,500 criminals into the country. Who are you to complain about anybody else? And then on top of that, this is what caught me the other day when I saw that he was going, that they settled to give her family, as they said, reparations. Now think about this. After the Holocaust, there was the Jewish reparations. After the Japanese internment, which they never should have been interned, but because of the fear that, they might turn around and start helping the Japanese, of course, the McCarthyism and the prejudice back then, they were put in intern camps. And of course, they were compensated. Then we look at this mess. We watched 1,500 folks storm the Capitol, beat down Capitol officers. One of them shot and killed for her transgressions. And her family is getting $30 million. But if you mention slavery, 40 acres and a mule, Black Wall Street, or Rosewood, remember about a year ago, the last remaining surviving person who was either 103 or 109 years old from Black Wall Street, they denied the claims that no, this is pretty much done. But yet, a Jan 6 rioter, guilty of insurrection, sedition, attacking the country, her family is getting reparations of $30 million. Again, Malcolm, I heard your thoughts. Grant, your thoughts?
You got to remember, you're talking to a person that, just similar to you guys, I gave 23 years. I served 23 honorable years in the service of this country, the Air Force, United States Air Force. If you cut me right now, I still bleed Air Force blue. But let me tell you guys, when I tell you with a great deal of a certainty that I still love a country that don't love me back. I still love a country that don't love me back. Do I find it surprising? Not at all. Not at all. It's really laughable. You guys know what I mean. You can't fight everybody. You can't fight everybody. I'm a man of God. I'm a man of God. And it's gotten to the point where those type of actions there, and then you're talking about 1,500 people that's 1,500 that was charged. There's a whole bunch of them. That was 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. They stormed that place at the urging of the president. He urged them. He said, "Hey, go fight and in his ignorant and fight like hell for our democracy." They fought like hell. And let me tell you guys something. Do you guys know who that young woman was? That young woman is one of the only ones that they visualized, because it was they were right there. They went through this. They went through the security, and they got to a place where there was still congressmen or senator, whoever, that was back there behind there. And the guy told him, he was like, "Hey, freeze, stop." And he was busting through. They were busting through. And he was like, "Do not come past here. I'm letting you know now." He had his gun trained. And he said, "Do not," and it was all filmed. That's one of the ones that we witnessed, because it was filmed, and that may be why they got paid or whatever. But he said, "No, do not come by. I will fire. I will fire." They bust that glass through and was going, and you saw the gunshot. boom. And I guess she was one of the ones, but they were busting through. They had hatchets, they had bats, the whole nine. And whatever happened to stand your ground. But she got rewarded with, and don't get me wrong, it's regrettable. A young woman, a young lady lost her life. I'm not saying at all she deserved to lose her life, but I could see that. I could see where they were coming through. It was a mob. It was an armed. They weren't armed with guns, but guess what? They were armed with hatchets and axes and hammers and whatever. And she ended up getting killed. I don't think that, if she had not been there, if they had not been there attacking and trying to get in and kill and maybe take hostage of some of our senators and governors, so he had to act. They got how many officers lost their life? About do you guys
5.
realize? I was going to say about 4 or 5, and it is 5. They lost their life trying to defend the Capitol. I haven't heard anything about anybody compensating them. So
imagine if that mob had been a black mob. All them folks, insurrection, breaking into the Capitol. Imagine there had been a black mob. There probably have been hundreds of dead black mobsters on the ground.
They would have never made it to the inner part. They would have never made it.
That's right.
So it would have been a slaughter.
Yep, that's right.
Slaughter.
So
30, 40, 50 people easily killed.
So looking at this from the standpoint, so obviously we can see where definitely, once again, this to me is one of the most horrendous examples of the bait and switch. Can we agree on that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
What do you think, Malcolm? I just now ran my mouth. What do you think? Let me hear you guys.
100 bait and switch. 100% bait and switch. And that lady's family shouldn't get nothing. She's dead now, and her family should probably be in jail because I'm sure they supported her. But again, he pardoned 1,500 people who were insurrectionists against the United States government. So, what are you gonna say? It's always a bit. It's 100% bait and switch. We can't. And I used to tell my troops. I used to tell my black troops in the Air Force, you cannot get away with what they can get away with. So therefore, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Agreed. There's some things that literally, no matter what we talk about, equal opportunity and fairness and equality, some things do not exist. Whereas I tell people when I hear DEI been misrepresented, I say that Trump's DEI stands for direct extortion and intimidation. So that's what I tell folks when I hear DEI. So think about this guy. We looked at examples of bait and switch. And I believe one of the last ones before we took our turn here. Let me move this back up for a second. For the buyer's remorse. Now, as I was saying before, here, remember diversity, equity.
What's DEI?
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
But tell people, the people that's looking and that's listening don't know what they know that, but who benefits the most from DEI before we go to that next part? Who benefits the most from DEI?
White women do.
White women. That's right. White women benefited most from DEI.
But it's assumed because of the fact that equity was a part of that. You saw diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was thought to be, that's a black thing, which was
exactly that's the point I'm making.
The mischaracterization, the misleading statements, the misappropriation. All of this is generally what Donald Trump's folks do. They mischaracterize simple terms. and then utilize them as if it's a crisis. And this is what I said on one of my other shows before. Every election and midterm, there's a crisis.
What are you doing?
What was the crisis? The crisis was the migrant caravan. Remember that? That was the midterm 2018 crisis. The 2020 crisis, that was COVID, but that was more or less a natural effect, per se. But the biggest thing was that you had vaccine hesitancy that popped up. The mask mandates. People didn't want to wear masks. I'm sure you being at the VA grant, you can remember that nonsense. And then 2022, what was the crisis then? The crisis then was CRT. All right. And not to mention in 2024, what was the latest crisis? The crisis that was up front that they had to generate at the last minute. Well, three actually. Kamala Harris wasn't black. So why would you vote for her? You know, she's not black. Can you trust her? The second thing was that Haitians were supposedly eating dogs. But then the third one kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Grant, about black. Actually, I'm sorry, Marcus, it was you talking about how black men didn't want to vote for a black woman. You had this nonsense of, well, I'm fighting for masculinity. And that was from the manosphere. Now, that's a different show also that I may have you guys come back when you look at this distorted red pill ideology that the majority of men, to include black men, have bought into. But there is some truth to what they're saying. However, that does not paint the board across with everyone. But ideally, because their focus was on the unaccountability of the black woman, which, again, as I said, there are certain aspects that there's truth on. But at the same time, brothers, it's not as if there isn't any contribution from you as well. That's the part of red pill that I need to specify to folks about, is that red pill was not for black men and against black women. Red pill was about looking at society from a standpoint as a whole, and looking at it from the whole, it meant that there are things that we ignore and take for granted, but then the things that we take for granted that are, dare I say, even egregious, or that people don't focus on, that was the aspect of red pill, to shine the light on what people turned away from and did not consider to be an issue that was accepted as the status quo. And Donald Trump, as always, was able to harness angst, and he got the guys running around talking about, we're fighting for humanity. We're trying to save masculinity. And one of the things about masculinity is that, no, we don't deal with women. So that was not going to work with her being appointed as being the Democratic nominee. That was almost doomed to fail, but people were hoping, well, we've already seen the mistake that was made for Hillary not being voted for. Will they be dumb enough to do it again? Of course. So I'll land the plane on that one right there. And Grant, your thoughts?
Everything you said was right on point. But I'm not trying to digress, but I just want people to know. Most people don't know. General society or the population don't know when it comes to DEI. DEI was brought about as, they know the acronym, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the biggest recipients of DEI are Caucasian women. Also, people don't realize that veteran preference, and of course we're talking about LGQ, all the alphabets. I can remember all of them. Just be okay. And like Dave Chappelle, what came to mind? Dave Chappelle said, the ones that took up half of the alphabet. So I'm sorry, not trying to offend anybody, but laughter does the heart good like a medicine. I just wanted, that narrative has been taken, and everybody like, oh yeah, I don't need. And guess what? A lot of people FAFO'd, the main ones, especially women.
Yeah.
FAFO. And a lot of women, unfortunately, I hate to say this, a lot of women were like, hey, what do you mean I'm losing my job? You know, I ain't black. They were like, but you are female. It's a big umbrella that a lot of people in society, it encompasses them, and they don't know. They did not educate themselves, and they voted for, and they're like, yeah, I'm against it. It's just like it sort of reminds me of them, the ones that say, you know, hey, yeah, repeal Obamacare. I don't want no Obamacare, this and that. And then somebody tap them and said, hey, but yeah, I'm down for. They say, are you down for the Affirmative Care Act? Yeah, that's what that's where I get my insurance. That's where I get my health care. That's how I take care of my kids. And they were like, excuse
That's
me,
the same
ma'am,
thing.
excuse me, sir. Obamacare is the Affordable Care Act.
One of the same.
And ignorance, you know, that's why he said way back when, I love the ignorant voter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The
hey,
uneducated.
the
Now,
uneducated. So,
FYI, folks, if you missed it in the beginning, Grant works at the Veteran Affairs. So just in case you missed that, so I'm going to have him come back, and Malcolm also in a different show, just a sidebar here, where we speak to some of these things that he's speaking of. But back on track, Medicaid, Medicare, think of everything they talked about that they wanted to end and take Obamacare off the shelf. But what do you have as a replacement? Oh, we're working on something. In about 2 weeks, you'll hear something. And
we got concepts. Yeah.
Yeah, we got concepts. We got concepts.
And even right now, even in the debate him and Kamala Harris had, he had concepts. But again, nonetheless, can we say again, bait and switch? Agreed?
Absolutely.
All right. So we are getting down to the last few topics here. So going back to what we started off with before we veered hard right, no pun intended for here. Again, Trump's Latino backers are having buyer remorse. Beyond betrayal.
Sure. 100.
Those are the words that Adele Sparrow, director of the Venezuelan American Caucus, said in February after the Trump administration announced they would end temporary protected status for almost 600,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S. and betrayed they should feel. Naturalized Venezuelans were crucial in Donald Trump's retaking of Miami-Dade County, prompting Florida Democrats to call it a day of reckoning. The city of Doral alone, also known as Venezuela, because of its massive Venezuelan community, voted for Trump to the tune of 61%. Hillary Clinton had carried this Florida municipality in 2016 with 68%, a complete flip of the script. In 2024, Trump made gains all over the U.S. with Hispanic voters, mostly Hispanic men. Puerto Ricans helped him. Anybody's phone ringing?
yes, sorry about that.
Yeah. In 2024, Trump made gains all over the U.S. with Hispanic voters, mostly Hispanic men. Puerto Ricans helped him secure Pennsylvania, and he even improved with Cubans, already overwhelmingly Republican. He didn't trick anyone. His stance on immigration was and is draconic. He stood by as his supporters demonized and humiliated Latinos of every origin. When I talk about the border, you know who the biggest fans of that were? They were the Hispanics, Latinos, Trump said at a rally in Miami in November 2022, days before announcing his second White House bid. Everybody said, oh, he's going to hurt himself with the Hispanics. Actually, it turned out to be the exact opposite. But again, I'll go ahead and cut it right there because we've got 1, 2, 3 more things we need to get to. But first, Malcolm, I'll let you go on this. Your comment.
Well, this is a primary example of voting against your own interest, and many people have done this. All these federal employees that voted for him, and what did he do when he came in? He fired them all. Most of the farmers in the United States voted for him. And what's he doing? He's cutting the programs that help farmers. Um, um, Not only the farmers, but the hold on, I lost my train of thought here. But again, it's just a again, you're voting against your own interest. Hispanic people, a lot of them, some of them, a lot of their family members are illegal immigrants, and what's being happened, and they're being deported in mass, illegally deported with no due process. So he said he was going to do this, and you didn't believe him. Again, you voted against your own interests. Hey, let's think about these coal miners. These coal miners with black lung. What was one of the things he just got rid of? He just got rid of programs that help these coal miners with black lung get medical benefits and medical care. So again, this is just an example of you voting against your own interests. And I hate to say this because in the Latino community, they wanna be white and they wanna follow the white vote instead of being in solidarity with the blacks and the Asians. But they wanna. I give you guys examples of I know um, Hispanics that are married to illegals that are still Trump supporters. So again, I'll say you're voting against your own interest.
Mhm.
Well, damn. All right. So, gentlemen, can we say bait and switch?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. Let's check that off the map.
But then,
All right, so
Malcolm,
now we're going to go.
Mm.
All right,
Malcolm,
let me hold up.
Huh.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
the one term that you did use, Malcolm, one term that you did use, and that's one thing we fall into there. We say illegals. Just say undocumented.
Undocumented.
Undocumented, because when they say they're illegal, there are so many undocumented. But guess what they ended up doing was 5 or 6 years ago, what Biden did was he says, listen here, we have to provide a path to so that they can become American citizens.
And I agree.
So a lot
I
of
agree.
people, they're not really. There are so many people. There's millions and millions and millions that came forward and said, "Hey, look, I've been here for 30 years. I've been here for 40 years, and you gave a path, and now they got court dates, and it's so far out. They got court dates for 2025, court dates for 2026. But guess what? They said the American government said you identify or you have started the process. So they have court dates, and it was like this. You need to. So the point I'm trying to make to you is that they self-identified and said, yes, I need to go ahead and become documented, and the government said we need to provide a path that we're no longer calling them illegals and stuff like that. But guess what ICE is doing?
Mm.
They gave them the blueprint. They going
Yep.
right to the jokers that's going that have their date set for court for their due process, and they've been here. They've been law abiding, and we're not talking about that crazy. Oh, they're the worst of the worst. These are jokers that sit back. They pay income tax. They sit back and hey, if you see somebody on television, 9 out of 10 times it's not the immigrants that sit back. They'll sit back and they won't even go five miles over the speed limit. Now, don't get me wrong. You got some bad people. You got the MS-13, which but everybody want to say, if you're an immigrant, you with MS-13 and this and that. You got 50 and 60-year-old men that's been here for 30 years that had 3 or 4 kids that are American. But you see the point. I was trying to make.
Yeah,
I'll do you
absolutely.
better. Back in 1960, I think it was 64, 65, where they had the 1965 Naturalization Act. This is about the time where the discrimination against Hispanics began to come into play. And we're talking about in 1965, you had Latin Americans, you had Hispanics, or I don't want to say Latinx. I know some of them take offense to that, but we'll say Spanish-speaking people, Hispanic, I just want to put that, who have been in the country up until 1965, who have been there since 1920, 1930. Never had a problem until the Naturalization Act of 1965 came to be. And then it started allowing the doorways for non-Europeans to come into America. Matter of fact, let me do this because I just happen to remember that something we were talking about reminded me of that. And forgive me, guys, if this stuff comes to mind here for me. Let me go ahead and bring this back up. So this is, again, looking at the 1965 Naturalization Act. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, also known as the Hart-Celler Act, was a landmark piece of legislation that significantly reformed U.S. immigration law. It eliminated the discriminatory national origins quota system, which had favored immigrants from Northern and Western America, or Western Europe. I want to say that was the 1924 Civil Rights or Immigration Act. I have to go back and just to be sure about that. And replaced it with a preference system based on family relationships and skills. This act led to a dramatic shift in the demographic profile of the U.S. with increased immigration from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So that is where all the bigotry and bias started after this act was passed, because now the opportunity for, remember the American dream, everyone talking about, remember how Ellis Island was always talked about by immigrants coming from Europe. They talked about that being the first place they went to, coming into the harbor of the bay and seeing the Statue of Liberty. I recall back in 2018, maybe 2019 or 2020, even the language for Ellis Island of "bring me your sick or your poor," or not that, excuse me, but come one, come all. I'd have to go back and I'll find that. I'll post it probably on the community page. But they changed the language to where it took away the whole context, which is coming to America to seek your fortune. They changed it completely to whereas now it's more doctrine, more, well, you have to ensure that you are here legally, all this type of nonsense that took away from the original concept. But getting back to this, when you move up to 1965 or come to that point in time, this is what increased immigration. Matter of fact, here it says so right here about the 65 Naturalization Act. Increased immigration. The act opened the door to non-European immigration, particularly from Asia and Latin America, and led to a significant increase in the number of immigrants coming to the U.S. For the first, in the Western Hemisphere, quote, for the first time, the act established a cap on immigration from the Western Hemisphere. But again, notice this main piece right here. That is what got everyone ticked off. I can remember in 1980 or 81, there was a segment on 60 Minutes where there was this white guy from Texas who was complaining about Hispanics who were there seeking jobs. You know, they hadn't done anything wrong, but he said that someone walked up to him and said, "Excuse me, do you speak Spanish?" He said, "No, I don't speak Spanish. I speak English." And he did it as a racist and offensive as he could. But again, this is where all that started from. But I'll ask you guys this, and we need to get off this topic and move on to the next one. But still, good information nonetheless. The first act of exclusion, all right, the very first act of immigration. Well, I wouldn't say one of the very first act, but federal. Have you guys heard of the 1882, or excuse me, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882? You ever heard of that?
No.
Nope, I have not.
That was one of the first, if you look it up, that was one of the very first actions of discrimination, because of the fact that at that point in time, it was believed to be that too many Asians were coming to the United States and taking away jobs from the white settlers, as well as due to the fact they were working for cheaper wages, they were driving the wages down. Grant, you've never heard that at this point in time?
No.
There you go. There's something new to think of. Discrimination has always been a part. What is that? Always been baked into the cake. Was that the expression?
Baked into cake.
America is who she is.
Here we
America
go.
has already, America has always been who she is. You guys have heard this saying before. When people show you
Who
who
they are,
they are,
you better believe them.
believe them.
Yep, you believe them.
Yep. Again, one of the very, 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 very first instances of bait and switch. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, signed into law by President Chester A. Arthur on May 6, 1882, was the first major U.S. law to restrict immigration based on race and ethnicity. It prohibited the entry of Chinese laborers for 10 years, denied Chinese immigrants already in the U.S. the right to citizenship, and made it difficult for them to re-enter the country. The act also defined Chinese laborers broadly, including both skilled and unskilled workers and those employed in mining. And people say that, oh no, America is not a racist country.
Oh, please.
Can we agree, bait and switch?
Oh,
They
absolutely.
connected. We wouldn't even, hey, guess what? You would have an East Coast and a West Coast. The Chinese and the Asian workers are the ones that built the railroad. They're the ones that built they're the ones
They
that
did.
connected the
Yes,
East
sir.
to the West.
Yes, sir. Especially the
I'm-
West
I'm-
Coast.
hey,
If you look
I'm
at
just
the
saying.
population of the West Coast right now, that's probably where the most population of the Asians are in the
Asian,
United
yes.
States.
It's a hub. Yes, sir. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
and like you said, what they did was they built the railroads first in the West Coast United States.
Connected.
And what happened during World War II? They got put in internment camps.
Yes, sir.
The Japanese, but they're Asians.
Well, Japanese. I'm sorry, Japanese. Yeah,
Japanese.
Yep.
yeah. The Asians. Yeah.
So now, along with that, like I said, that was the first bait and switch, but that was enacted with a federal law preventing immigration. That was the very first one. I don't think a lot of people even know that. I don't recall, even when I was in college, I don't recall that one being brought up per se, but that was some of the things that I learned after getting out of college, because again, there's a lot of information that has never made it into the history books. And there was a primary reason for that, and that was the Daughters of the Confederacy after the end of the Civil War. But again, different show. Now, the Wormley Conference. This is one of the primary issues that I was going to speak of, or that I will speak of, regarding bait and switch. So getting up to the Wormley Conference, let's look back at the end of the Civil War. So from the end of the Civil War in 1865, 1866, now that we've got all these formerly enslaved people walking around, they themselves now are looking to be integrated into the Southern society, because in fact that's what the war was based on. The war was fought to free them. So you had the 1866 Civil Rights Act that begins this, to where it talks about blacks now have the ability to own homes, to own property, to be a part of the societies when it comes to business, full integration. Then you also had what they called the Reconstruction Acts, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed protection, and the 15th Amendment, which allowed the right to vote. Now, in between 1866 and 1877, where blacks are being integrated into the southern part of America, you've got the Ku Klux Klan who's out here running amok, more or less intimidating the folks that used to be slaves, because of the fact that blacks are quickly adapting, and you're having blacks who are part of education in universities, in school systems. They're in law professions. They're doctors. All right. This is what happened in just 11 short years, from 1866 until 1877. Of course, we get down to the election of 1876, where both the Democrats and the Republicans declare victory. Now, here's something that I did in another show as well, where people seem to think that, well, I'll put it this way: today's current Republican Party attempts to say that they are the same Republican Party that freed the slaves back in 1860, or at least should I say, let's just look at back during the Civil War period. They claim that we're still the party of Lincoln. In actuality, it was the radical Republicans who, again, the Republicans, believe it or not, they were once the good guys. They were the ones who were responsible for freeing the slaves. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, so Kevin, you went back to the 1920s, and I'll go back to the 1960s, and I'll talk about the Dixiecrats. So the Dixiecrats is the party of, they were the ones that were against the civil rights movements, against um, um, everything that was moving towards equality in the United States. And what all of them did was they switched over to the Republican Party. And
But here's the, if I could, I was setting that up because you're leaving out. I mean, I got your frame of mind where you're going here, but the thing is that the Dixiecrats were gone by the fall of November 1948. They were only short-lived. Strom Thurmond. But you're correct. You're still correct. But like I said, they didn't hold that much power at that point in time. But like I said, let me set this up, then we'll get back. I'll have you pick back up what you're talking about. So basically, before we get to what Malcolm's going to, folks, again, most of you who follow me, you know I've already broken this down, but it's good to show you, and I'm not the only one who knows this. So it's a good thing. I am not the only one. So no lies being told here. So again, the Southern Democrats were the slave owners. That is the party that today's Republicans are attempting to say that the Democrats of today are the same Democrats of back then, which is not the truth. And again,
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So what you had here is that in 1876, the Democrats say we won, the Republicans say they won, so there's a Faustian deal. The Democrats say, hey, you know what? You guys can have the presidency. Yes, we lost the war. We've lived for the last 11 years with Union troops here in the South. We just want you guys done. Now, at this point in time, you've got a lot of upheaval because of the fact you've got, again, the Southerners who are attacking blacks, going in homes, terrorizing them. You got hangings.
Jim Crow.
Rape, murder, all this is going on through.
You just mentioned.
This is, hold up, guys, time out, because this is before Jim Crow. Jim Crow didn't start until after 1877. I'm still in 1876.
Jim Crow started in 1877 to 1954.
With the Reconstruction Act, that brought about Jim Crow. I'm sorry, my brother. That brought about the Jim Crow. Oh, pardon me.
Grant, time out, bro. Take that just for a second.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, power down for a second. Jim Crow came in 1877. I realize this. However, I'm saying that it was not until 1877. Hear me out, guys. Yeah, this is what I do. All right, so 1876. Again, there's the Faustian deal that's made that the Democrats say, hey, if you take up, we'll be good and you guys can have the presidency. So therefore, 1877.
Yeah. That was a bait and switch. That was a bait and switch, like you said, Kev. Take out those Union troops so we can start fucking them Negroes up again. And the South will rise again. That's what's going to happen.
Now, no, it's not what's going to happen. It's what has happened. But again, hold on to that because you guys are right in the pocket where we need to be. That's where I'm driving at right now. So in 1877, when the last Union troops were pulled out, and that Faustian deal was made to whereas, okay, sure, you guys can be, you can be the party that wins the presidency. What you had was now everything that was done between 1866 up until 1877 was wiped out as if it never existed because the antebellum South came back. Thus, now we have the beginnings of Jim Crow. Malcolm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man. Now, go ahead and if you could now we've entered into the Jim Crow period, and we can go ahead and go forth to where we talk. Oh, I'm sorry. Going into this, the bait and switch. Remember now, again, we've had the bait and switch where black.
Oh, look. So the Southerners gave up the presidency, so the Union troops would move out, so the South could rise again. And by the South rising again, that comes with Jim Crow, that comes with the KKK, and that comes with intimidation of the white folks. That comes with not slavery, but slave labor. You know, so that again, it was a bait and switch. Here, you can take the presidency. You can have it. It's yours. It belongs to you. But get these Union troops out of the South, and the South will rise again. The South will rise again, and we won't forget. We won't forget the war of Northern aggression. That's what the South, the Confederates, called the Civil War, the War of Northern aggression.
And also,
it leads into my charger. I'll be right back.
All right. So it also leads into the lost cause narrative of where, if you heard from the Daughters of the Confederacy, I'm sure you're aware of that, the Daughters of the Confederacy then perpetuated all of these lies.
Yes.
Whereas now we have
black men are rapists. All they do is rape white women, and they rape and pillage. That all of that stuff came from the Daughters of the Confederacy.
We have two competing ideologies. That is why you hear Donald Trump saying that Black history is divisive and racist, because of the fact he does not adhere to the history that everyone else accepts, that acknowledges the existence of Blacks and the existence and accomplishments of Blacks, Hispanics, as well as Asians, to include immigrants. None of that is a part of the ideology that he looks at, and that's again because of the Daughters of the Confederacy. Now, moving forward with that bait and switch now, as we move into the 20th century. Now, one of the things here, and I'll probably backtrack for granted as soon as he gets a charge, but going into the 1920s. Now, this is where we're coming up on what I'm going to say is going to be the final bait and switch that we'll speak of. And this is going to drop it at the foot of Herbert Hoover, not President Herbert Hoover at the time, but Herbert Hoover, who is the Secretary of Commerce around 1927 or so. So what you had happened during the time of Hoover's being the Secretary of Commerce, you had the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927. So if you're going to look at the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, you're talking about 23,000 acres of land that is underwater, completely drenched, sold out, to where you had both the Blacks and whites having to move into some type of encampment to ensure their safety. But the problem here that people don't seem to realize is that during this point in time, while you had Blacks and whites living in that particular area away from their property, you ended up having the levees that needed to be maintained because they were starting to break from the water. Now, at the same time that Hoover had been called in, he was not part of an early FEMA or anything like that. You had, a department that was there to take care of that. However, because of the fact that Hoover was known for his humanitarian aid, people went to Hoover instead. So he did what he normally did. And he was an excellent humanitarian. He'd been living in China for 2 years, as well as also he'd taken the time to aid Russians shortly.
The Russians and the Bolsheviks.
The Bolsheviks, shortly after I think he was doing the Bolshevik Revolution, but shortly around or after World War I, he was over there delivering that type of humanitarian aid. So he was the person that everyone considered to go to provide aid for this particular catastrophe. Long story short, you had to the point where the Blacks were being victimized while being in those, I almost said internment camps, but being in those encampments. So the money that everyone lost because of the flooding, they were getting compensated for, or should I say, the white landowners were getting money for their land in compensation.
That's right.
But the Black sharecroppers were not getting any money for their land. And at one point in time, their money was also going to the white landowners. Now, more egregious than that is where now you have, well, I know this story, but let me just roll this down for folks to keep up with. So more egregious than that is that the black sharecroppers were being forced to go fix levees that they did not build, that they were not qualified to fix, but they made them fix it, and even at gunpoint to a certain degree. There was even a death in there. So I want to say it. Oh, you know what? Let me turn the screen. I'm sorry, folks. Let me add this back here. There you go. So again, folks, if I was rambling here, this is talking about, as we were talking about here, the Herbert Hoover and civil rights. So essentially what you have here is that while in this encampment, you had blacks who were being forced to fix levees that they had no business messing with because they weren't engineers. However, still, because that they were there, they were used as labor. So of course, had the local NAACP who found out about this, who eventually went to Hoover, who was looking to be president during the next election, and said, hey, look, we've got news here that blacks are being mistreated in this encampment. They're being forced to work on a levee that they should not be working on. They're not receiving money. They're just being misused. We're going to break this. Hoover says, no, don't do that. What we'll do instead is that if you keep this out of the press, I will make sure that when I become president, I will do anything and everything for the black cause. And this is a lie that he told, so I want to say it was Robert Martin.
Yep,
there we go. Robert Martin, who was one of the folks asked to come speak on that behalf, because Booker T was at that point in time, I think he was at the Tuskegee, at the Tuskegee Institute. So right here, in exchange for keeping the suffering of African Americans out of the public eye, Hoover promised unprecedented influence for African Americans if he was elected president. Martin agreed and worked actively to keep information about mistreatment of blacks from being revealed to the media. Following election, Hoover never kept his promise, leading to an African American backlash in the 1932 election that shifted allegiance from the Republican Party to the Democrats. So again, for anyone who has been missing this, this is where Malcolm and I are heading now into the election, we'll say the 1948 election or so. But if you want to, Malcolm, please again continue with the Dixiecrats.
Well, again, the theme of what we're going to talk about, this is no more than bait and switch. This is almost like the Platinum Plan. He said what he was going to do. People took his words because what he did for the Russians and what he did for the Bolsheviks. He said, look at what I did. I helped those people. There was 21 million Russians starving and no political. They're starving, and I'm going to feed these people. And the Bolsheviks, and I helped them. But when it came down to helping the blacks, he said, I'll help them. So because he did that for those white Europeans, people assumed that he'd do it for black Americans, and they voted for him. And of course, he did not fulfill his promises. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything he said he would do for these black folks. Just like Donald Trump is not going to do anything he said he would do for these black folks. So again, bait and switch. Bait and switch. Oh, did I lose him? Kev, you there? Oh, I
my
lost
bad,
him.
man. Yeah. I had to mute on my bad. So yeah, so can we agree bait and switch?
Absolutely bait and switch. Did
All
we
right.
lose? Did we lose Ty?
Yeah, man. I was just saying that he said he was putting his phone on the charger.
Yeah.
So
his phone probably died. Yeah, he's gonna come back up probably, I'm sure.
So I'm hoping that he'll come back up here on his phone here. But hey, this has been a good show thus far. Let me go ahead and say this, folks. If I forgot to say so, find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do, and subscribe. This is what you're looking for. All right, so we're at 1 hour and 33 right now. So the conversation has been on point. So we have pretty much cleared the hurdle here, and we can also say bait and switch has been everything that we've discussed here. We have seen it.
Yes, sir.
It. No misinformation here. So
no, sir.
Last thing that I'll pull up here: Trump's early actions mirror Project 2025 plan he wants dismissed. Check this out. So what I wanted to let me see if I can increase this. There we go. I think that's there we go. So this is a legend here. Let me do this because you probably need to see what the check marks and the X's and the yellow circles mean. All right, so this is the legend here. So the 0 means partial alignment, meaning there's half truth, there's half of they're saying that this is what's going to happen with 2025. Then here's one that can make no mistake. This is exactly as it said. This is happening as exactly as they stated it would in 2025. And then here is no explicit alignment. No, none of that has been seen. All right. So with that being said, now let's go back and take a look at this. Select actions taken by Donald Trump. Create U.S. Doge services. They're saying, that's a partial alignment. No, bullshit. Now, Grant, that was full alignment. I don't know if
that's
Doge
full alignment.
So, okay, if you look to the left, Friday, January 24, 2025. So Doge was not fully up and running at that point in time. So that's why they're saying partial. All right, return office to federal workforce. Okay, we know they talked about doing that, and they actually fully did that. So that became a check mark. Freeze federal hiring. I know there was a short-term freeze, but I don't know if it's still on right now. But we'll say partial right that. But everything else that you see that check mark is a one-to-one straight comparison. Project 2025, actual implementation, boom. So we really don't have to go through this too much because we know for damn sure this. Whoops, let me come back here. We know this was damn sure a bait and switch. So let me read this part. President Donald Trump's blitz of executive actions align with many of the ideas promoted in a conservative policy blueprint he wants distanced himself from. Not much else to say here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Project 2025.
Right here.
I've never read it. I don't know what it is.
It is right there. Yep. Here. You what?
I said, he said Project 25. I don't know what it is. I've never read it.
Oh yeah. It's horrible. I don't know what that is. I'm not going. You know what? It's terrible. You know, it's not true. I don't know anything about this. But then you turn around and everything that was on Project 2025 that
it's gone step by step.
And there was a video that was taken secretly that caught one of the primary folks. His last name is Vogt, and he is part of the administration right now, who is the primary architect for 2025. And he said, Donald Trump knows about it. Now we're in communications. He's just doing the typical political stuff, just denying it. But he knows exactly what we're doing. And this was put out 4 months before the election. And people just poo-pooed it, pushed it to the side, thought nothing of it. But as you can see as well as I can, it is clearly, I mean, there's more information to it, but there's no need to go ahead and read through this. Again, because we already know that it is, shall I say it, bait and switch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I don't know what this is. I don't know what. I never read it. I don't know what Project 2025 is, and he's basically going line by line, implement Project 2025.
All right, so that was the last one I was hoping to do with Grant here, but I think his phone probably died, and maybe the missus grabbed him.
Yes.
But go ahead and call that a loss here. So we'll go ahead and do this, man. We're at that point. So any last words, Malcolm, that you want to put in here? Last thoughts.
You know, Kev, just to make the point, man, all of this stuff that we're dealing with is bait and switch. And we just gotta continue to bring up all this stuff, talk about it, socialize it, communicate it, because if we don't, we're gonna continue to be in the same situation that we're in now. Uh, I applaud you for bringing this stuff up and talking about it because not a lot of people are talking about it. Uh, Grant brought up some points about the Democratic Party, about they did this and they did that. Um, here's what I believe about the Democratic Party. Economically, I'm probably not a Democrat. I should be a Republican. But socially, I have to go with Democrats. But they're failing. They don't have nobody or no platform or anything to counter Trump. And I wish they did. And I hope they do. But all we can do is continue to fight. All we can do is continue to fight.
The basic thing that I look at also, as I was saying, I wish Ty was here, but what I was trying to finish some thought was that since you circle back around here, is that we had Democrats and Republicans going to the same folks in different locations. It wasn't just a thing of Democrats. So I realized what he was saying was factual, but it was anecdotal because that was in his. But at the same time,
that's what he was dealing with. Yes, sir. That's right.
It was an anecdotal thing, but he wasn't wrong because
no, he wasn't. He wasn't.
I look over in different areas where you also had Democrats who were going to churches, but you had Republicans who were also going to churches. They were also going to black businesses. They were also going to the barbershops. They were going to those places and having the same conversation. Both parties were having the same conversation. So in no way, shape, or form can we say that one party was catering to the other and no one else showed up. No, they both knew the assignment, as people like to say. But ultimately, what it came down to here is that it's voting in your best interest. But the miseducation of black folks doesn't always have to be believed that, oh, the white man is keeping me down. No, no, no. We have our own folks who I've said
absolutely.
So I call them horses. The Candace Owens, the Byron Donalds, the Tim Scotts. Another active social media, Dennis Furlan. Now, I like the brother for the most part, but then when he starts talking about politics, he gets it all wrong, meaning that he is one of the main folks still pushing to our miseducated blacks that today's Democratic Party is the same Democratic Party prior to 1964, 1965.
It is not.
Which it is not, because there was the great switch that is framed in some corners here. I did a show on that, broke it down. The same way we went through everything today is what I normally do with all my shows, and put everything on point to show that this is a lie. But what can you do when you have black folks who will sit there and look you in your eye on a panel and say Kamala Harris isn't black? Literally say this type of stuff. So what can you do? Well, we may have lost a generation, but it's still not over. But I tell folks, theoretically, if we look at it, we have at least 3.5 years left to save democracy as we know it. It sounds hyperbolic.
No, it does.
I make this with no shame, no fear. We are looking at a reconstituted Confederacy that is masquerading as today's Republican Party.
100.
More folks. Again, agreed?
Agreed. 100.
Unless we get more folks involved to have the conversation of we are under direct attack. Black history being called divisive, being called racist, but yet no one is saying anything about the history that the Daughters of the Confederacy have been pushing for the last 130 years. Anyone who is Hispanic with a tattoo is a gang member, but no one is saying anything about Aryan nations or it's probably the Aryan Brotherhood, the Ku Klux Klan tattoos up and down their arms across their faces. Nobody's saying anything about that. So we have this
black history is American history. Black history is American history.
It is. But for those who choose not to accept that and they cater to the history that Donald Trump caters to, that is going to be our problem and our downfall if we don't get active. But nonetheless, that's why I drop it off. So again, Malcolm, I appreciate you coming up here, man.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for taking the time, being in. Hey, Ty, I know you're not here with us right now, but still, nonetheless, I appreciate you also for showing up. So with that, Malcolm, appreciate you stepping in, man. And I will catch you at another time, but thanks again.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. We'll talk.
Hey, take care of you, bro.
All right, later.
All right, folks. So that's pretty much going to do it. So nobody's here right now in the panel except myself. But you know what? I always make sure that the replay gang gets the information. So again, all I can say, and all my big brothers here said the same thing. We need to make sure we are actively looking at the bait and switch. No more can we fall for this. We have allowed ourselves one too many times in history, and as of late, to be taken aback and taken as fools for this type of propaganda. Again, look for it, be active, and make sure when it's time to vote, you do your part, all right? Last again, find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody about what we've got going on. If you like it, let us know. Share if you do. Subscribe. This is what you're looking for. But you know what? Let me bring Grant back in one last time and let's get his final thoughts since he is able to come back. Hey, man, we thought I was getting ready to dip off, but I'm sure you probably caught up here. But if you could, man, let me get your last thoughts before we get out of here.
Well, I missed a lot. I know we've been on for quite some time. I just look forward to the next one. Maybe we can next time we'll address. Hello?
Here's the last that we just.
Okay.
This is the last thing that Malcolm and I was discussing before he dropped off. We talked about the last bait and switch.
The last what?
The last bait and switch topic.
Which
From
is
early actions mirror 2025 plan. He wants dismissed. Oh, you don't have your glasses on. Yeah. So this last tab here.
Yeah. Let me put my glasses on. You know, I'm the old man. Early actions mirror Project 25 plan. He wants to miss. Wait. What do you mean? It mirrors. What do you mean it mirrors? It is 2025. Anybody who sit back and say it's not 2025, and he doesn't even deny it anymore. It doesn't mirror 2025. It is 2025. He lied.
Look at the date, Grant. Look at the date. January 24th, 2025. This is before. This is what we're saying. The article was looking at before it was implemented about Project 2025 when he was denying it. So it mirrored. Yeah. So what they're saying, what they were saying is that at that time, you know what? For a person who said that you had no knowledge of 2025 and you weren't going to push any 2025 objectives because you don't know anything about it, a lot of the stuff we're seeing being done early on inside of your new cabinet looks.
Everybody knows it's 2025, brother. It is 2025. He doesn't even deny it anymore.
Not anymore, Grant. You got to look at the particular point in time when he first came out. He said, "I'm not doing it," but yet this is what he was releasing at the time, January 24th, 4 days after he took office. He started talking about here's the things we want to do, and people started saying, "Wait a minute, all the stuff that you're talking about right now, this looks a lot like the shit you denied."
It is 2025. Right. People are foolish.
However, at the point before he got into his presidency, it was him saying that, or it was people saying, "Hey, this looks like a lot about what you said you were not knowledgeable of or were not going to do." Hence, it mirrors. But again, that's January 24th. Now we're on what is today? The 6th of May. We know damn well now, 5 months later, that it was always going to be Project 2025 initiatives. And he was lying.
But he doesn't even. You are absolutely right. But they're in the quandary that it's not a quandary. His followers and his cult-like following, you can sit back and the writing's on the wall. You can't even deny it. But they say it has nothing whatsoever to do with 2025 because he says it. But it just goes with all of his lies. But he doesn't even have to lie anymore because he got us. He got us. He got the Supreme Court. We are already under authoritarian. People that's still in denial are saying, "Oh yeah, we still have a democracy." We don't have a democracy. We're in authoritarian government. We are. We are under a dictator. If people need to educate themselves, sit back, and I always wondered this. I said, with Adolf Hitler and all the other dictators they had, what happened? How did a democratic or a democracy just come under authoritarian government and just become under the thumb of a dictator? And if you look at all of the moves that Trump has made, it mirrors. We're talking about mirroring. No, it mirrors Adolf Hitler. And that's why he quotes Hitler a lot of the times. You know, look at Bonhoeffer. There was this movie called Bonhoeffer that a coworker of mine told me. He says, Ty, just check it out. It's going to surprise you. And what you're going to find out is that it is shockingly everything that happened in Bonhoeffer shockingly mirrors what's happening today. All of his plays, the plays How to Be a Dictator and all, it all mirrors what Hitler did and how that country, how he became a dictator. You know, because we all know that he wants to be a king. And I saw one of your and I apologize to the people that's still watching, but my phone died on me. Who does that? Who allows AI to do a picture of you as the Pope? And I heard him jokingly say, "Hey, maybe I need to run. Maybe I need to be the Pope." And then he sits back and say that, "Oh, okay, it was done by AI. Somebody put it out there." No, it was the official White House team that put that picture. And now that you see the Catholics and everybody's getting their butt hurt, or I should say they're very disrespected by that picture, disappointed by that picture. Now you say, "Oh, Eric, you can't take a joke. Y'all are being too serious." It's like you said, bait and switch, practicing the art of redirection. Hey, listen to what I'm saying to you. Don't believe your lying ears or your lying eyes. Listen to what I'm saying to you. That's what's going on. We need to wake up. We need to wake up.
So that's
I think he ultimately wants. Pardon me?
Those are your final thoughts.
Yes.
But finish your statement if you could, man, because you were in the middle. Let me let you get that last one out. He wants to be a what?
I'm not saying I just say that this regime, I'm not saying the president, but this regime that we have right now, people are not going, you know what? Empty shelves will make people reality set in. Martial law is going to make reality set in. And we are very, very, you know, the thing about martial law is that you cannot remove, and you think the keys that he has now, when martial law is actually established, you can't remove whoever's in office. and you think he's got the keys to the car right now, woo, martial law is right around, or recession is right around the corner. But I don't know. I'm but a man, but I see the writing on the wall. Hopefully, I'm wrong about this, but and hopefully I'll be invited to another one podcast. But I'm just speaking the truth, and I'm speaking what I see, and hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we all are wrong, but the writing is very much on the wall.
So as it
Thank
comes
you.
down to it, man, still, I appreciate you for getting the last thoughts out. And also, again, appreciate you and also Malcolm for jumping on here, because, again, it's been a long time since we've all been able to get together. But when we do, it's about more or less party, having a conversation about old times. But today it was a topic that I wanted to make sure that we could all share and speak of to see if everyone is caught up with what's going on here. So my last thoughts, as I said before, people, stay vigilant. Open up your eyes one last time. Today's rejuvenated Confederacy is now our Republican Party. Keep that in mind, folks. All right, last but not least, one last time, one more again. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we got going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do. And subscribers, this is what you're looking for. Grant, thanks again for jumping in, big bro. Everybody else, we out.
Hey, God bless.